Hello, hello. We're back yet again with another instalment. This is the Union Tapes, episode 28, and it's with one of my idols from back in the 80s. It's with Eddie Fiola. Eddie was there at the start of the skate park riding scene, and he tells us his story on all of the stuff from back in those days. He lets us into how skate park riding developed, the AFA, the King of the Skate Park series, the sponsorships he had, the ups and downs with the sponsorships, some of the drama that floated around back then, which is very interesting, tours of Japan, Europe, UK, lots of TV appearances, a lot of stuff going on here, and he takes us right up to present day. This is a really interesting conversation we had, and thanks to Eddie for coming on. So get it down, yeah. Yeah, just give us a little brief bit of like background of like born, raised, what you was into as a child and that sort of stuff, just to get us up to scratch of where we are.
Let's see. Born and raised in Long Beach, California, near Lakewood Skate Park. That was one of my very first skate parks that I rode with a bicycle. I've ridden other skate parks on a skateboard and things like that, but grew up in Bellflower, California, near Long Beach, but nobody knows where Bellflower is. So,
yeah. So and you went to school there and you did everything there, right? Long Beach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or Bellflower, sorry. And
yep.
You was into. I saw something today that you was into skateboarding before you got into BMX.
Yeah, the skateboards were less expensive at that time, my parents got me a skateboard. I rode that around the block a couple times, played around, but it took forever to get anywhere on them. So eventually went from skateboarding to riding bicycles. The Schwinn Stingray. The very first bicycle that I had was a Schwinn. And, the big ape hanger bars and the banana seat and all that stuff. So that turned into, wanting to ride motorcycles, but not having any money to ride motorcycles. So we made our bicycles look like motorcycles. So we put on motorcycle handlebars and mud flaps and single seat and, took off the sissy bar. And so that was our beginning to BMX, but I didn't know it was BMX. I just wanted to look like a motorcycle rider.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you like emulating like Evel Knievel or something, right? At that point, or is this even before? It's Evel Knievel, yeah. So, yes. What sort of level of skateboarding did you get to? Could you do it, or was you just like too young and like?
Too young, didn't really do much. I mean, I could stand on it and I can skate around. We didn't ride really any swimming pools or any half pipes at that point in time. Okay. But yeah, it was just kind of skating around.
All right. I just wondered if that like had any effect on later when you started riding BMX. So yeah, sorry. So you're doing the Schwinn Stingray thing, and then you're jumping that, and that's becoming like emulating motorbikes, and then like so BMX is also coming parallel to that, right? But you just haven't discovered it yet.
Right. So riding my bike, the Schwinn Stingray, and the bike not holding up. I mean, it would break. But the best thing about the Schwinn is that it was guaranteed for life. I mean, it was a lifetime warranty on that bike. So if anything broke, they would give you a new frame. And
amazing.
So the bike shop, knew me by first name, and I kept bringing my bike back, and they kept, warrantying it, and I'd get different colors. I'd have a red one, I'd have a blue one, but they wouldn't upgrade it to where BMX is starting to come in.
Okay.
And the Schwinn Scrambler. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but it was almost a diamond shape type of a bike. But that was that was more expensive than what we could afford back then. So,
okay. Well, so the Scrambler was after the Stingray.
yes.
Okay. No, I don't. Yeah, I must have seen it, but I don't not know what it was.
Yeah.
So what was? So how did you actually like come across BMX for the first time? Did you see a picture of it, or did you see the actual bike first, or someone on it? I guess.
You know, having friends who had more money than I did, you know, their parents got them their BMX bike, and then, you know, going to the bike shop, you know, trying to get parts for my Schwinn. You know, they would have new the new bikes in there, and then the magazine came out, and you know, when this BMX magazine came out, then, you know, just looking through that, wanting to do what they were doing, and you know, going from the front page to the back page and over and over and over, and just wanting to be like those guys.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you remember who you was looking at in them mags? Would have been Stu Thompsen and stuff, right?
Stu Thompsen, Greg Hill, Harry Leary, you know, the Timmy Judge, all of these guys that I can remember, you know, had style. And those are the ones I wanted to put up on my wall that I tore out of the magazine that I did have on my wall. Kind of like right behind what you have there. I mean, like,
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the whole wall was plastered with BMX photos, and you know, when eventually I did get a BMX bike, and, you know, but it was like almost given to me. It was, we went to Signal Hill, and there was a company there, a BMX company called SE Bikes. And we had heard that they would throw some, you know, defective bike parts away in the trash can. So we would go to the trash can after hours and dig through it, and, you know, there'd be some stickers and maybe an axle or two or whatever, you know, but parts we could use and we could make it work on our bikes. But a couple of times going there, the owner would catch us in the dumpster saying, so they kicked us out, and but we did it so often. We did it so often that, you know, now I know the guy that owns the company, Scott Breithaupt.
Yeah.
He eventually just said, "Hey, look, get out of my dumpster. Here's a frame. Go away." So,
no way.
Yeah, not that I was worth riding for SE. He just wanted me to stop digging in his dumpster.
So, what frame did he give you?
He gave me a quad angle.
Oh, no way! Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. That's good. That's pretty good of him. Amazing, really. Like.
Yeah. So one of my very first bikes, BMX bikes, was a quad angle, and it was, you know, after I got the quad angle, I think BMX Action did the cover shot of Tinker Jurez at the skateboard park. So it's a big cover shot, and I didn't know that they let bicycles in the park. So once I saw that, I knew where my local skate park was, which was Lakewood, and that's where they did that photo from. So I, you know, begged and pleaded and to see if we can get in, and they wouldn't let us in at first because skateboarding was still big at that point, but it was on its way down. So they were having less and less skateboarders in. So we would do, you know, we would go every day, and, you know, we would break in and jump the fence and ride after hours. And eventually they let us in because we would pay, just let us ride.
Yeah. And had you been to like race tracks and stuff like that before this, or was this before racetracks?
Yeah, we went to a local BMX park, BMX track. It was Ascot BMX, and it was, you know, I wasn't very fast, but to go to a place that they built the jumps and they were made for jumping, and we didn't have to dig and we didn't have to take care of the jumps. So to go to the BMX track was you know, the way to go, you know, for jump wise. But I mean, like, we used to ride this thing. It's an embankment, like just like a riverbed, and it was cement, you know, a little 45 down and flat and then back up. So we used to ride that, and learn how to jump out and do 360s. And so.
Okay. And what was that, like a ditch, I guess, right?
Yes. Yeah. But it was cement.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. There's still about in LA and stuff, aren't they? Them ditches and that. Yeah.
Yeah.
and then so you did that before you went to the park, so you could already do a few tricks before you actually went to to ride the skate park.
Yes.
And who were the other guys that was riding the skate park as well at the time?
Well, the only guy that I knew about riding the skateboard park was Tinker Jurez.
Okay.
The other guys that would ride there were just my friends of the school. You know, they're you know, just schoolmates, and we hung out and rode. And if I was going to go, they were going to go, and if they were going to go, I was going to go. So we just hung out at the skateboard park. Eventually, that was the place to go, and that's also when, you know, video game parlors there, you know, like
arcade, yeah, we call them arcades places over here. Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of the bikes were, you know, guys would be hanging out and they're you know, playing video games at the arcade, and they had an arcade at the skate park. So not only did you could ride inside, but you could spend your quarters at the arcade. So
all right. And what was Lakewood? There's the famous footage of Tinker. That's Lakewood, I guess, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the really famous stuff. Was there like a contest at Lakewood later on or something?
Later on,
I don't know nothing about that skate park. Okay.
Yeah. Later on, I had met. You know, I rode there almost every day after school, and then on the weekends we would go all the time. So I met a guy. His name was Bob Morales, and he started riding the skate parks and doing this and that, and the weird, you know, I put this in my book that, you know, one day I was at the skate park, and the only day I didn't bring my bike with me. The only day I didn't bring my bike with me, Bob Osborne shows up and is doing a photo session with Timmy Judge. And I had never seen Timmy at my park, at Lakewood. And I got pretty good, and I thought I was, you know, the best there. And then all of a sudden, this guy is doing a photo session with the magazine there, and he didn't know any lines. He didn't know where to ride. He could jump because I've got him jumping in, you know, on my wall, and I know who he was, and I know who the photographer was. So I begged and pleaded with Bob to hang around to wait until I got back. So I ran home. I think it was 2.5 miles, and eventually, you know, ran home, got my bike, got my helmet, brought all my gear with me. I came back, and Bob is putting his backpack on with all his cameras, and he's actually walking out the door. And so I had to stop him and ask, and pleaded with him just to, you know, like, I'm just another kid that is asking to, you know, hey, take pictures of me. Yeah. And he doesn't know me from anybody. And I begged and pleaded, and he sat there and says, okay, let me see what you got. And he stood there, and I rode in, and I did a couple of tricks. And then when the last trick I did, I was able to do it like a 360 and landed. And I'm looking back at where he was, and I could see him taking his bag off his shoulder and start pulling out his camera gear again.
Okay. So yeah, you achieved the goal, yeah.
Yes.
And then, did you get a print photo from that day?
So he did a photo session with me. Now I am not your typical guy that he normally takes photos of. So like if you looked at all, the BMX action up until I got in, everybody has a uniform. Everybody was sponsored. Everybody looked, geared up and with their sponsors, and the helmet matched the jersey and the leathers and the pants and the bike, and everything looked pretty. Where I'm wearing a pair of Levi's and a t-shirt and a helmet that doesn't match anything. And so I didn't know if I'd ever make it in, but, and I didn't know that it takes 3 months before the magazine comes back. So when the photo session happened, I'm buying the very next issue. Nope, not in that. I'm buying the very next issue. Nope, not in that. I could have went months or years buying issues, hoping that I'd be in.
Yeah.
But, luckily enough, it came out like 3 months later. And, I got a full page color photo in there, and it went great. But I mean, you couldn't see my face. You couldn't see, who I was. They just said this guy, Eddie Fiola riding at the Lakewood Skate Park. And, that was it. I was riding a quad angle with magnesium moto mags.
Okay. So is that the photo taken of you coming towards?
Yes. No. So that was it was a tabletop cross up over a hump. So the snake run went uphill, and I was jumping over that, and it was a
opposite tabletop.
Yes.
I know the one. Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah.
I thought it was the other one where the air coming towards you. Okay.
Right. In the half pipe.
Yeah, that's an early one as well, right? I like that one.
So that was shot in the same day.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go.
So they used.
So you was already doing airs.
Yes.
So how did the airs? The airs come about?
Just watching the skateboarders, and the skateboarders weren't going that high. They would get out. They would get a wheel out. They would do a kick turn, and I had brakes, and I had, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what we could and what we couldn't do. So when we were going out, sure, we crashed sometimes, and sometimes we didn't, and eventually just got higher and higher out. But I didn't like, the bowl or the ramps that I liked didn't have any coping. So the swimming pools, that I rode, I didn't do a bunch of airs out of that, but the half pipe that had no coping, that's what I got used to. So that and jumping. So.
Okay, so that's early. That's real early, isn't it, for doing airs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what year would you say that is? Like 81, 82?
81, right? 80s, 80, 81, 82. Yeah. Wow. I think I got my first. Yeah, the first competition that I was actually sponsored in was, and I got the magazine. The first cover shot in Bicycle Motocross Action was 1982. So
yeah, I know the one. Yeah. So
but magazine shot, the first magazine shot was in 1980.
All right. Oh yeah. The one with the jeans and you got like Bell Moto 3 maybe. Is that the helmet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And the airs, like, was there other people doing the airs, or was you just like, was you spearheading that?
There was a couple other people doing similar, but not as smooth. I luckily I had a bike that I had gotten from, Scott Breithaupt, just the frame, and it was better than the Schwinn Scrambler and the Stingray, other stuff. So I had other friends who had bikes, but they weren't as good as the one I had. And I knew that if they had better bikes, they probably could do it better. But I just lucked out, and you know, that at that point in time in our lives, you know, that's all we did. You know, my friends and we went to the skate park, or we went to the jumps, and we just rode. So everybody that was riding with me was about the same speed. So, you know, I didn't accelerate until everyone else stopped riding.
Okay. All right. So is that in that half pipe, that's where you had to learn to carve the other way as well?
Yes.
So this is like super early.
So that half pipe was on a downhill. And so when you rode in, you drop in from this side, ramp to this side, and then you'd roll this way and then back down and back up until you got to the very end of the ramp, or the end of the half pipe. So it was all downhill. So you'd go left, you'd go right, you'd go left, you'd go right. We wouldn't spend the time to just go right. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Well, it makes more sense, doesn't it? You're going downhill, so it's going to be way harder to just go around the circle. But
so it's more like the snowboarding half pipes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking. Yeah. So when how many airs did you get in? Can you remember? Like, was it 4 or 5, or like what was until the end? Because I'm very interested in like how you guys were turning the opposite way so early, and it just kind of disappeared for like decades before people figured out they could go the other way again. Like, but I always remember the rumors. Yeah, Eddie could turn both ways. That was one of the things I always said in the mags.
Right. So the thing is we'd probably get like 4 or 5. You know, 2 on this side and 2 on this side. And then once you got to that point, the half pipe started getting taller. And there was at the very bottom, there was a bowl that went around.
Okay.
And at the very end of the bowl was, you know, no coping, but we could air out. And I've got some early pictures of that, that when I was going to school, one of my friends had a photography class, and he needed a subject to you know, take photos of. So he came down and took pictures of me. So I've got pictures of me going down in, you know, on both sides and on the very end of the ramp. So I felt more comfortable doing an air to the right than to the left, but I was able to go to both sides.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, nice. Because I don't think I saw you like carving the full pipe, like in those pipeline contests and that both ways. But I don't think I saw you like doing opposite airs until I watched the GTV video where you're on the half pipe, and it was like actually I think the best line in the video is like, I think it's like opposite air, alley oop, straight. Like regular air. I was like, wow. And I watched that like a few years back, and I was like, that's the best thing in the video. Like, but yeah, that's what I think anyway. It's so progressive because everyone else was just going bap bap, you know. That was
again, you know, when you have a flat level half pipe and you have a consistent, you know, way you like to go, you just get used to it.
Yeah, of course. Well, everyone just wanted to do tricks, didn't they? I understand it's like on the quarter as well. So everyone just wants to do a trick. So, of course, you're not going to go. Why are you going to turn the other way? You just want to do a trick. So go up, go down, do your trick. Yeah, I get it. So after like, where do you first like discover that you're going to start like doing shows and like early sponsorship? You rode for SE early, right? So that ended up evolving into...
Not really riding for them. I mean, like they gave me a bike to get me out of their trash can. So I don't know if that's called a sponsorship or not. You know,
that didn't move on to anything else.
Well, not money wise, but you know, so the thing is that I'm riding Lakewood Skate Park, and I'm riding this SE, and I get in the magazine. But I'm still nobody. I'm just a guy that got in the magazine. And I have this lady contact me, and her name's Gail Webb, and she does these anti-drug safety and sports shows. And I've never seen any of these shows before. And she has this traveling half pipe. So she contacts me and asks me if I would like to do shows for her, and she would like to come down and meet me. So she comes down, she meets me. I'm at the skate park. She sees what I can do. I give her my address. She comes down and meets my mom, and she asked my mom that, she's got shows coming up. And her very first show is in San Francisco. So now I'm this, 15, 16-year-old kid that has never left the country or the state or anything. Yeah. And this lady wants to bring me to San Francisco to ride this half pipe. So, and that's where it pretty much started.
And was that the clear plexiglass half pipe?
At this point in time, the one that she had, there were sections that were clear and there were sections that were blue and painted and this and that, because I guess prior to me riding it or anybody else, the Lexan, the plastic stuff would break or deteriorate, so they just resurfaced it. So they had one piece, and with that, so but the ramp, it was a half pipe.
I've seen the pictures.
No flat bottom. Flat bottom. So
and people skated it as well on them demos.
Right. So I remember doing these shows for Gail for some time, and we got this kid, this Tony kid, this hot kid.
Right. Yeah.
And he wasn't anybody. He was doing tricks, and his style was different than everybody else's style. So she wanted to use him in her shows, and we did an interview with him not too long ago, and he said that his very first autograph was with a Gail Webb show, and that I was there. Yeah. So
amazing. Yeah, I know of the Gail Webb story. Yeah, a little bit. Like it's good. That wasn't known further than California, I don't think, for many years. But now, it's known, right? So it's nice that that's out there.
Yeah.
And who was there? Other riders, or were you the first one doing them shows?
So no, she had other riders, and there was a skateboarder that his name was Freddie DeSoto, and he was a skateboarder, but also rode BMX. He also raced BMX, and he would ride his bike in the Gail Webb show and ride the half pipe. And then she had picked up this other guy. His name was Fred Bekker.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
So Fred was doing some shows for Gail, and then I think Fred got hurt, but she wanted to keep Freddie riding the skateboards, and so she wanted to find another bike rider so that Freddie wouldn't have to do both. And so when Fred Bekker got hurt, she had hired me, and I started doing shows for her. When I was out doing shows for Gail, we would be at malls, and people would be walking around the mall, and they'd stand around and watch his, us riding the ramps. And at one time, I think it was Jeff Botima who saw me ride and said, "Hey, you're a great rider. I'd like you to ride for me. Here's a pair of forks." And that was literally the very first sponsor I had ever had. So he gave me a set of forks that nice. And he called me sponsored. So
cool. Did they ever make anything else other than the forks?
Not that I can recall. I remember, the forks, the Bojima forks, and them extending down past the.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Past the axle. So, yeah. We didn't really see that. I don't even know if they came over here. That was quite early, so I never saw any when I was a kid. Yeah. and what was the next step from there? So he gave you your first part and said you was on the team, so to speak, which was just products, right? And then what comes after that?
So what comes after that is, so I'm still doing these shows for Gale. The other picture now comes out in the magazine. So in between my very first picture, Bob Osborne has done photo sessions with other guys. And one of the other guys was Jeff Watson.
Oh, no, right? Yeah, I know Jeff.
Yeah, so Jeff had come out and they did a photo session with Jeff. And then they went back into the archives of the old photos and they used another photo of me that day in another issue. And on the very bottom of that, it said, well, who's better, Watson or Fiola? And so they pretty much started the King of the Skate Parks contest. Now we weren't competing at all. We were just riding. And then they said, who's better, him or him? So and then I think then they also said, who's better, Bekker or Watson? Or, so Bekker got another photo in, and it started off like that. So anyhow, when that second photo came out, and I was still doing Gale Webb shows, I got in contact with a lady that was in charge of Premier helmets.
Okay.
And her name was Denise Barter. Denise also knew the people over at Max Leathers.
All right.
And also knew the people over at Torker. So, all of these connections, little by little, I was sponsored by, the Forks by Botima, and then, Premier Helmets, and then, Max Leathers, and then, maybe Torker would give me the frame. And so then I started riding a Torker, and it just escalated from there. And then eventually I'm riding a Torker, and it feels really good, where, BMX freestyle is starting to rise.
Yeah.
And Bob Haro had been riding a Torker for a while. And then he decided that he was going to make his own frame. And he made the freestyler, right?
Yeah.
The chrome freestyler that looked like a Torker, but it wasn't a Torker. It was, just
slightly different. Yeah.
Slightly different. Because the Torker was a race bike. It wasn't meant for freestyle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, anyhow, I get a phone call from BMX Plus. And BMX Plus wants to do a photo session with me now.
Okay.
And I'm still riding my Torker. And I'm just, I've got my Premier helmet and my Max Leathers and my Torker. And I get a phone call from Bob Haro out of the blue. I'm just a kid, and I've never talked to Bob Haro before. And all of a sudden I get this phone call from Bob Haro saying that he wants to, sponsor me, and he wants to, hook me up. Well, I don't know anything about, what it costs to put an ad in a magazine. And I just know I got in the magazine, and I know that I've got a photo session ready to happen. But Bob Haro knows what it's worth to him,
Yeah.
So later on, I find out that a full page color ad in a magazine cost $3,000, right?
All right. Yeah.
But if I get in the magazine and it, and they take a picture of me, it's free, So when I rode that SE, they got free advertisement, right? So Bob knows this. So Bob contacts me, and he doesn't tell me why, what's going on in his head. He just says, "Hey, I'd like to sponsor you. I'm going to give you a, helmet. I'm going to give you leathers. I'm going to give you a bike. And, I'm going to hook you up." Cool.
So the frames were out?
Yes.
Were the frames out? Or was this just a prototype?
Prototype. Brand spanking new. Only one. The only one. And so he gives me everything. A guy shows up and he brings me the whole uniform, the helmet, everything fits. He gives me the bike. I ride it for a couple days. And I have a photo session with BMX Plus. Now I do the photo session and it turns out great. But the very next day, I get a phone call from Bob saying, "Hey, I'm going to need that bike back because it's the only one in town. It's a prototype, and we need to take more photos of it." Oh, okay. I'm a kid. He says, "We'll get you one as soon as we get them in." All right, cool. So I go back to my Torker, but I still wear the full uniform. For now, I'm sponsored by Haro, And so he takes the bike back. A 6-page, full-color, black and white photo comes out, in the magazine 3 months later. And there's a contest coming up. This is one of the very first contests that's going to happen. And so I still haven't gotten my bike back. But he says, "Hey, I'll get you it. So I ride my Torker and I wear the full Haro uniform, and we have Skate City contest going on. And I get a full page, or not a full page, but I get a cover. And you can't buy a cover. So I get a cover shot.
For one hand, 1 foot?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know it, yeah.
Yeah, so I get a cover shot, but I'm not on a Haro. Oh, I'm on a Torker, but I'm in Haro gear. So,
yeah, I know it, yeah.
Yeah, so he missed out on having his bike in the picture, but he still got, all the promotion of me wearing Haro gear. That
pretty much got a cover too, right? Really?
Yeah. So I never seen that bike back. That was it. I never got that bike back. 30 years later, when they reissue the bike, I get a phone call from Joe Hawk over at Haro. This is long after Bob had sold the company and everything. Yeah. But so they reissue this, and their launch is in Las Vegas. And so Joe Hawk invites me to Las Vegas, and all the other guys that ever rode for Haro back in the day. And I didn't know why he invited me, because I only, I rode for him for a day for the photo session, more or less. And, I have told this story once or twice here and there, but during the launch was a big, huge party. And, they called up a couple guys and they handed them their frames and said, "Hey, we'd like to thank Tony Murray for riding for Haro. We'd like to thank Mike Dominguez for riding for Haro. We'd like to thank this guy for riding to Haro. And we'd also like to thank Eddie Fiola for riding for Haro for one day." And so they handed me that bike.
No way.
30 years later. Yeah. And so they had me come up on stage and tell the story while Bob Haro was sitting in the audience. And Bob was going, "Yeah." He agreed. He was just, he's an entrepreneur. He was, a businessman, and he got thousands of dollars of advertisements for nothing.
Did you ever ask him back then, like, where's my bike? What happened?
No, because I went on and did bigger and better things.
Okay, you just left it in the past.
Yeah. So eventually, going from riding a Torker, riding the Haro for one day, going back to my Torker, Bob started doing a sticker business, and his sticker business was going really well. But he started to get into knowing who all the bike manufacturing guys were.
Bob Morales.
Yes, Bob Morales.
Okay.
And he introduced me to Howie Cohen. So Howie Cohen was the owner of Kuahara and Everything Bicycles. So Bob was able to hook us up with Kuahara. And then we still was sponsored by Max Leathers. So we have Kuahara colored leathers, Kuahara jerseys, we got sponsored by Kuahara, but Bob and I started our own team called MF.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Morales and Fiola, but we were sponsored by Kuahara at that point in time. So
who did the logo for Morales Fiola? The shield thing.
I thought of it a long time ago, but Bob was the artist, and then I had mentioned, what would look really cool would be this, and then he said, well, it would look better if we put checkers in the back, and we made it look like this, and so Bob thought of a lot of the emblems, but also I think he took it from some surf company.
That was a great logo. That race jersey I never really was one for race jerseys, but that one, even when I was a kid, was like, that's the one. That is it. Like it was not. I don't know. Because it wasn't a bike brand. I think it just had something more to it. It had mystique, and it had like two names that you knew were like big names, and they were good. But it wasn't like it didn't have the bike name on it. It was just like MF. It was almost like an underground kind of little thing that was going on. That was great. Yeah, I love that. But yeah, I always wondered about that, how that came about. And did you guys make anything more than a jersey? You make brake guards or something, right?
No. Well, Bob started. Bob had his hands in a bunch of different things. He started making number plates, and he started the dyno number plate because at that point in time, I think the Haro plate was the only thing around. And, if you didn't run a paper plate, you ran a Haro plate. If you didn't run a Haro plate, there wasn't anything else. So Bob started making number plates. And so there was enough BMX racing going on that there was enough room for everybody. So he started the company Dyno. And then, we rode for Kuahara for a while. I went to Japan for Kuahara now I didn't know anything about the filming of ET, and I didn't know because I'm just starting off.
Yeah.
And when we started riding for Kuahara, Howie Cohen had already given bikes and merchandise to the movie production company. And the stunt people were already involved doing the movie. So when we were sponsored by it, it was more or less the promotion of ET.
All right.
And we went to Japan to promote the BMX bike, the Kuahara, but to also promote ET, the movie. So we were in Japan, myself and this other guy, John Hutlin. And John Hutlin is a old school BMX racer from back in the day. His whole family raced. What else? So we spent a month and a half in Japan, traveling all of Japan, riding. And John really didn't do a whole lot of ramp tricks. He didn't do any flatland tricks, but I needed somebody else. And so we did something. We did stuff when we rode. He could do, some front wheel hops, balance and bunny hop and
Yeah, you could
jump.
get by. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and back then we, you know, it wasn't a whole show, but it was something that nobody saw before. So,
Well, did you have ramps for them shows, or was it just like flat based?
we had small quarter pipe, 6 foot tall, maybe 5 foot wide, and a jump ramp.
All
so
right.
the jump ramp was to flat. So you just jumped off. You do little kick turns, but you know, people were excited to see it because they never saw anything like that.
And I bet that was like for you guys, like youngsters going to Japan for like a month or 6 weeks. It was mind blowing, right?
Mind blowing.
Like just completely like life changer.
Yes, we didn't know anything that we didn't know what it was like in a different country, and you know, going to a different country back then, that you couldn't even read any of the signs, you know, because they're all in symbols.
Yeah.
Right? If I go to Germany, I could at least match this name to this name.
Yeah.
You can't match symbol per symbol unless you know. So when we go to Japan, we don't know anything, and we're figuring stuff out. But we had people that were taking care of us the whole time. They were part of the kind of like the ABA, but it was the JBA. It was the Japan Bicycle Association. And they took care of us, and they brought us from point A to point B, and we did shows. And, you know, it was weird is that when, you know, I was doing shows for malls or for Gale Webb in malls, and, you know, our malls, there's a store here, store here, store here, store here. Their malls in Japan were in, you know, sky-rise buildings. There's a store here, a store here, a store here. The playground where we got to do the shows was on the 30th floor on the top of the building. So it was, you know, the only place that they had for us to ride. So,
all right. Wow. And what was the outcome of that? Like, you promoted the film E.T. and then you came back. And was you is Kuhara like actually a Japanese bike brand?
They were made in Japan. They were made in Japan, and they were sold here in the U.S. You know,
who owned them? Who was the
owner? Howie Cohen. As far as
American guy,
yeah.
Okay.
So Howie was an American guy that just knew that BMX was coming in, and because he owned Everything Bicycles. That was the other thing, is that this Everything Bicycles was the distributor for all bicycle manufacturers. So if you owned a bike shop, you would call Everything Bikes, and you'd order cranks, and you'd order forks, and you'd order this, and you'd order that, and they would just pull it off the shelves. And so when we got sponsored by Kuwahara and its Everything Bicycles, they literally gave us a shopping cart and said, "Go to town." And it was a kid candy store. I mean, like we just pulled parts. Oh, Redline cranks, those are expensive. I'm gonna take those. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take this. But we rode for Kuwahara, but we were the MF team. So and they were good with that. So they weren't paying us a whole lot of money, but they gave us all the bike parts we ever needed. So everything. I mean, we didn't know what we were worth back then. So there wasn't an algorithm to put a price tag on ourselves.
No, that's right. Yeah, you guys were early, like pioneering that stuff like then. So you don't know, do you? So Kuhara was Everything Bicycles in-house brand. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah, I had no idea. So let me go back to, this is all happening the same year as the first King of the Skate Parks.
Yeah, pretty close.
So who, like, the mags kind of made that happen. Like, by putting the free skate park riders, who's the best, right?
Yes.
But who pulled that together so that was a contest? Bob Morales.
Right. So Bob Morales started. So we had done small contests prior to the magazine doing anything, but and Bob put this together and he called it the ASPA, American Skate Park Association, the ASPA.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we did like one competition at Lakewood, and they did another competition at Paramount, which is another skate park, which when they build skate parks, they don't really know what a skate park's supposed to look like. And they didn't know what's supposed to be rideable and what's better for bikes or skateboards and things like that. So when that contest came around, the Paramount skate park, I went there, I rode around, and I didn't feel good about riding this park. So I did not enter. So I left. So there's a couple people that to this day say that they won the King of the Skate Parks at this contest. I didn't go, and yeah, you did win, but so anyhow, they claim that for their fame. So they all, I get these same guys keep telling me this, I beat you in this contest, or you left before, you didn't beat me if I didn't enter.
I've seen some oddball conversations online, before, like about things that happen, like in the 80s,
So anyhow, So ASPA, the American Skate Park Association, Bob started off, and he did a couple of them, right here and there, no big deal. Then another company did a one-off competition where Bob Morales competed, I competed. There wasn't a pro contest yet, but I think Tinker Jurez was there, Jeff Watson was there, but a lot of the guys, we didn't know what category we were supposed to be in. If this is my very first competition to go to, I'm still a novice or a beginner. And since these other guys were in the magazines, are they pros? Or they semi-pro or whatever, experts maybe? So anyhow, then Bob decided to start off the AFA, the American Freestyle Association. So started doing that, and eventually, did a couple flatland and ramp stuff, and then the AFA started the King of the Skate Parks competition. And the King of the Skate Parks competition was a series of competitions that went to different parks, and then you gained points, kind of like riding motorcycles, like moto, where you do a series of races, and at the end of the race, at the end of the series, whoever got the most points won the big trophy.
Kind of like BMX racing,
So Bob started the King of the Skate Parks, and when the very first King of the Skate Parks, I think, was the Skate City one where I got the cover. So
the Whittier, that's Whittier,
Yep,
okay, And who was Mike Dominguez and Brian Blyther? Were they at that one as well?
So Michael was at that one, but Michael, again, I knew Michael before he went pro, and I knew Mike. I was pro at that time.
Okay.
And I was sponsored by Torker and Premier Helmets, and was sponsored by Haro. So, but the Mike was just another, beginner, novice kid. After watching us ride, he got better.
Yeah.
And the competition went from Skate City to Pipeline. And then we all had to ride Pipeline. And then Mike went to Pipeline and he got better. And that's where Brian Blyther was found also there at the Pipeline. So,
all right.
Mike
So Blyther was local at Pipeline.
Right. So Brian was local at Pipeline. Michael was local at Skate City. And then we eventually went to Del Mar. And, there was some Del Mar locals that were really good. Brian Deem. There was another John Peterson. Some of the not pros were Tony Murray. Yeah. And Donovan Ritter. And there was a bunch of other guys all involved. And eventually, when the amateur guys were figuring out that they were doing the same things we were doing, well, then they started to go, expert and pro. And that's when Michael and Brian both, started competing against me. And, but we were all friends at that time also. So, I would literally bring Michael to some of these competitions.
All right, cool.
That we competed against. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, all right. So, sorry, I just wanted to know there's a bit of history about King of the Skate Parks and the AFA there. But so if we go back again to you've just finished your tour in Japan riding for Kuhara. Did they ever talk about like building a freestyle frame when you was riding for them?
No. So the only freestyle frame that anybody had built would be the Haro bike, the freestyler, right? So Bob was riding a Torker also at one point in time, and he liked the double top tubes, and eventually, Bob was riding the freestyle. So many different that we split up, and when I was out in Japan, Bob was still selling stickers and doing other things, and contacting everybody. So when we came back from Japan, Bob had met Gary Turner and Richard Long. So when I got back from Japan, he had introduced me to these guys, these GT guys.
Okay, so this is Bob Morales. We're talking because we missed a bit. Sorry. Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah. So Bob Morales introduced me. Now that because Bob Morales and myself had the MF trick team or the freestyle team, and then he wasn't able to leave to go to Japan with Kuwahara, so it was me and John Hutland. And then when myself and John came back, John went to Florida because that's where he lived. And then when I came back, Bob Morales now has met the owners of GT Bicycles. So, and I've been in the magazines a couple times, and Bob's been riding, and he's been, trying to, rub elbows and talk. When we get back, Bob, like I said, introduced me to these guys over at GT.
Yeah.
And now GT is asking, well, freestyle is starting on its rise, right? So that not freestyle frames, it just riding freestyle, like
riding freestyle,
and doing like that. So now GT is thinking about doing a freestyle frame, but they don't have one yet. So GT now, we leave Hara and how he's good with it. We leave Kuwahara and we go to GT. Now GT offers us a full sponsorship. Like, we're going to pay for to enter into competitions. we're going to pay you a monthly salary. And if you get any magazine photos, then we'll give you extra.
Okay. So the real deal.
Now that's yes. So now
Yeah.
it's the real deal. It's a job. And that's, all I have to do is ride my bike and try to get in the magazine as much as I can. So while we're at GT, Bob is suggesting, hey, we need something, he really likes the two top tubes to stand on because Bob did some flatland stuff. And I like to do cross-ups when I did my airs, and I'd like to do tabletops. But the front brakes got in the way. So Bob came up with this platform idea on the Performer where he would stand. And I came up with the idea of the bend in the top of the tube so that the brakes would pass by.
Yeah, it wouldn't catch. Yeah.
Right. So, and the reason so there's two different reasons on that bend that I remember, there were other BMX frames out there. There were the Red Lines, and there was the Astra Bueller, and then there were Mongoose and all these other companies. But the Red Line, the bottom tube, if the head tube was here and the top tube was here, the bottom tube came to the very bottom of the head tube, and they had this.
Okay.
They had this bracket.
Gusset. Gusset. Like the triangle shape thing, yeah?
Gusset that it came out straight. And I remember one of my friends having a Red Line, and he was able to turn the bars all the way around because the bottom tube went higher and the gusset was flat, not at an angle. So I went to, Gary, and I asked him, how about a bend? Just to come out straight, just enough so that the bars would pass and then come down. And Gary said, no way, that's going to break right there. You're going to hit something. It's going to bend in. It's not going to be structural. It's not going to work at all. And I'm thinking to myself, I had a Schwinn Stingray that had a bend and a bend. It had bends all over it. And I never bent or broke a bike in any of that area. And so Gary said, I'll build it. I'll make it. You guys have to ride it. If it breaks, then it's your team, So he built it, he made it, and I was still doing shows. So when they named the bike, they pretty much did, because I was the performer. We did performances. We were performers out, and so they gave it the name of the Performer. So,
all right, awesome. Well, did you pick the angles and the geometry for that bike as well?
So again, when they handed us our first bikes, they were race bikes. We had a Mach 1 or a Pro Series. When they handed us this bike, we didn't know what a head tube angle was. We didn't know what we didn't know what the top tube length was. We didn't care. They're handing us a chrome brand spanking new bike.
Let's go.
We didn't care. We just did. Hey, we're gonna jump it. We're gonna do tricks on it. We're gonna do everything. So when they built the freestyle bike, they literally took the jig of a race bike and they made a bend on it, and they made the standing. The geometry of a race bike is now the geometry of a freestyle bike.
Yeah.
So it was the exact same, and when they hand it to us, now it's a freestyle frame. We don't care what it feels like. We're just going to ride it. We didn't think that a deeper head tube angle would be better. We didn't know that a longer head tube or a top tube would be better. We still ran, it's an 18.5-inch top tube with a layback seat post so that we could turn the bars.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, I always wondered if the geometry was different, but no, yeah.
Yeah. Now, different bike companies had different geometry. I remember, jumping from one bike to another bike and feeling different, going, oh, this feels different. And I can't do the same things I did on my other bike, but I'll get used to it.
Yeah.
So, we didn't change geometries. We did what they gave us.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Okay. And then you start doing shows for GT as well as like all the other stuff. I remember like these like real famous pictures of the GT truck with a quarter.
Right. So we started doing these shows, and it got to a point where Bob got really busy doing his thing, and he started the dyno pants and the dyno jerseys and things like that. But we still had our little team, the MF team. So we incorporated that with, being sponsored by GT, and, the colors were the blue and yellow. And that's where we got GT to do a yellow bike, and it matched up with the uniforms, and we started wearing the yellow helmets and all this other stuff. So it all came across pretty smooth, and where GT now is selling a lot of bikes, and they're selling them overseas now. And for them to promote these bikes, they sent Bob Morales and myself overseas to do our world tour, to speak of. I don't think anybody's ever done a world tour before GT. So GT was the very first ones to do this. So when they sent Bob and I, we went to, Germany, we went to England, we went to, Denmark and a bunch of different places across, the European area. And
and what was this the 84 tour you did?
Yeah, this 84, 83, 84, something like that. Yeah.
In the yellow was, I think that was the 84 one. Yeah, where you did Kellogg's TV show and stuff. So, but before that, there was like these pictures that came out of you riding the truck with a quarter on the back that always looked like there's some real iconic video pictures in some English of that stuff.
So yeah, we were,
and I think some American ones as well.
Right. So we started doing tours here in the U.S. also. And they built a quarter pipe that was easier to set up. It just pulled out of the back of the trailer, and we hooked it onto the side of the trailer, and we just did shows, and we did them across the United States, in every town that had a bike shop that GT, was distributing to. And we went everywhere and did everything. And then the magazines were still doing photo sessions with us. And in between all of this stuff, we would get a phone call from the magazine, and the magazine would tell us, hey, this Pepsi company wants to do a commercial. And they don't know who any of the BMX guys are. So we're going to give them your name if that's okay. So they were pretty much our agent for commercials or anything like that. So the magazine gave a bunch of names and this and that, and it actually turned out to be like a Mountain Dew commercial. So we did a Mountain Dew commercial, and Bob Morales is in it. I'm in it. RL is in it. Pat Romano is in it. And then, we would get calls from other Del Monte, Foot Locker, Levi's.
So things are flying. Like BMX is like exploded right now.
Everybody, if there's anything that you want to put something on TV, you got to have BMX involved with it.
Okay.
So, I mean, even Kool-Aid had BMX racers in it. So
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So from from when that like explosion happened, I suppose it was slowly building for the years you was in it, and then it just is out, right?
Yeah.
Could you like? Did you think that was just going to continue on for what? Like this is it? We're just going to take over. It's going to be a huge mainstream kind of thing, or did you sort of say, well, we'll see how it goes? Like, or was you just completely in the moment and being like, this is great?
I think it's in the moment. I think I never thought of how big it's going to get, or how, is this going to last forever? I never asked myself that. I didn't know it would just stop.
Yeah.
But it did.
Yeah.
Did I think it was going to go on forever? Probably. I never thought it would just stop. But in that being said, it never really stopped for me.
That's what I was going to say later on, actually.
Yeah. So, I've always rode my bike, and if it wasn't, if BMX died down, I was still doing TV commercials, and I was still doing TV shows or movies where they still had BMX involved in it, because the kid's going to ride a bike, and they needed somebody to ride it without having the kid get hurt. So they would hire me. But then mountain biking started to come up, right? So BMX went out, rollerblading and mountain biking started to come in. So when BMX fell out, mountain biking was on its way in, and now every TV show and every commercial had a mountain bike in it.
It switched, yeah.
It switched.
Yeah.
But I was able to do tricks on a mountain bike that nobody did.
Yeah, okay.
Because I rode it like a BMX bike.
Yeah.
And so when I went to these when I went to these auditions, I would show what I could do, which was different than everybody else. Because everybody that went to these auditions on a mountain bike, they would ride the mountain bike straight. Oh, I can ride.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. They weren't BMX guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm coming out, and I could do a bar hop, or I could do a rubber ride, or I could do a 180, or I could ride backwards. So it was completely different. And to the production company that had never seen anything about BMX, because they didn't know, and all they know is mountain bike stuff. Hang on, I got an air compressor.
Oh, no worries.
All right, leaky airline.
All right, yeah, no worries. So you just got them gigs because you was doing BMX stuff. You was a BMX guy, no matter what the bike you're riding, right? Yeah.
Right. So then I went from riding BMX bikes to riding. I just called it a big BMX bike, but a mountain bike. So I did all my BMX stuff on a mountain bike. So then I did a couple movies where they needed a mountain bike, but they wanted BMX tricks. So I did a couple movies like that. And then a TV show came up where they needed mountain bike riders that did extreme things, and this is right when X Games was starting to come in, and there wasn't extreme mountain biking yet, but it was called Pacific Blue. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah. It was the cop show, right?
Cop show. So they had us riding mountain bikes at the beach.
Yeah.
Talk about a perfect job. We got to hang out at the beach where chicks are in bikinis all day long, and we got to ride our mountain bikes on the beach chasing bad guys. Now, a couple times I would actually be chasing myself. So they had the actors ride, but when they needed the actor to like jump over something, chasing the bad guy, well, now I'm the bad guy, and I had to jump this. I had to switch clothes. I had to get into the cop uniform, and I had to jump and chase myself. So it was kind of weird. But Hans Ray and myself got to do that job for, I don't know, like 30 episodes or something like that. It was a good gig. So.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds it. Yeah. Oh, but okay. Well, let me reverse a bit because I've missed a couple of bits I wanted to ask you about. Was when did you first start doing alley-oop airs? Because I noticed some really early alley-oop airs at King of the Skate Parks I was watching the other day, and that's one of my favourites is the alley-oop and where it came from. So,
right.
where would you say it came from?
I'm gonna say it pretty much came from skateboarding, and I think it was Christian Asoy that I saw do it. And he would it was, instead of going straight up and then turning and coming straight back down, he would come at an angle and then backwards and then come back. And it just looked really cool. So I started trying that, but it was harder to do in a swimming pool because of the curvature than it was on the half pipe. So starting to do it on the half pipe or on a quarter pipe. The quarter pipe is hard because you only have 8 feet.
Thin.
So on the bigger ramps, like the TOL ramp, the bigger, I think Ron Wilkerson's ramp, the Enchanted ramp, right, and just trying different things, and that's where the alley-oop, because just continuously going in the same circle just got boring after a while.
Of course.
Yeah. So
but you did. I saw one in Pipeline in the rounded bit. Yeah. I mean, I know you the further you travel, the worse it's going to be. But it was still an alley-oop, and that was early. That was an early one in a skate park. I talked to Todd Anderson about them because he was doing them over the channel very early, as well. I thought you might have been one of the first guys to do that, but I just wondered where it came from. So Hosoi was doing them on a half pipe or in the skate park?
Skate park, in the swimming pools and in a half pipe and we interviewed Christian Asoy for a Gail Webb documentary. And since we were interviewing him for Gail's documentary, we interviewed him for my documentary because he was at the exact same time. He was this guy and I was that guy. He was BMX, or he was skateboarding and I was BMX. Where it's funny is that when we interviewed him, he doesn't get interviewed for a bunch of BMX things.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
When we interviewed him, we asked him, in your own words, how would you explain yourself? And he literally said, well, you would call me the Eddie Fiola of skateboarding.
No way. That's pretty nice, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that would name Christian Asoy.
Yeah,
so it was kind of cool.
Yeah, but that's high praise from Christian Asoy. Nice. It's nice to hear.
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to know about Freestyling magazine when that came out. Like, how was the sort of general consensus amongst the riders when that came out? Because that was a big deal when it appeared.
It did. It was a big deal. And like freestyling was getting bigger and more guys were doing it, and we started to have competitions, and we started to meet other riders. I mean, like when I'm in my own neck of the woods, I know these guys, but when the magazine starts doing photo sessions of like Ron Wilkerson or Mike Dominguez and Tony Hawk, or just different BMX guys in general, when they decided that they were going to come out with this freestyling magazine, we got our own publication now, right? So now we didn't have to buy a BMX magazine and skimmed through it to see where we were in the magazine.
Yeah.
We had our own magazine that just had freestyle and just had ramp riding. And, you know, they explained and had, you know, interviews and words and all this stuff that you know came from all over the world from freestyle and magazine. So
from the from the scene,
yeah. So when and I was in it pretty, you know, big at this point in time, and I knew all the people at the mag. So when the very first magazine came out, freestyling, and Ron Wilkerson was on the cover, I'm going, really, Ronnie? Ronnie got the cover. I was there. I was near the top, and I was in I was on the table that they were picking. Well, who do you think we should pick? Who do you think we should pick? And they picked Ronnie. So, but I got the second cover. So
yeah, that's right. The second cover was, I mean, they both were nice, but the Mohawk helmet was like something that was definitely, was spoken about like in circles of BMX guys. Like that was a nice touch, right? And who shot that cover? Windy.
I think Bob shot that one.
Okay, it was nice picture, like nice line on that.
Yeah, I think we were in like Redondo Beach, and we were doing a photo session, and we just happened to have this neon sign in the background, and it just looked great. So, no, it was very nice. Yeah, and also freestyling covered the Joe's jams. Can you remember much about the Joe's halfpipe jams? Because there was two, right? Yeah. So just going to, you know, a different riding somebody else's ramp is like riding somebody else's skate park. You're not going to be used to it. It's going to feel different for you. There's going to be some locals that just rip and that this is their line. They know that this side has vert or, you know, vert and this side doesn't. And, you know, you being new to that ramp, you know, you got to figure it out. But I think that's what made us, the pros, different than some of the guys that couldn't ride other people's ramps. You know, they were used to riding only theirs. And so when we went on tour, when we did these world tours, and we couldn't bring our own ramps to these world tours, we had to ride ramps that they thought were ramps. You know,
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you know, we rode 6 foot tall, 10 foot tall. You know, when you tell somebody how, not everybody knew how to build a quarter pipe. So when you tell them how to build it, it's, you know, it's this, and this, and it turns out to this.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't work, but we are there. GT paid for us to be there. We have to look professional. We have to do what we can, and we rode everything and we made it work. So
no, I really like the Joe's ramp feature. For me was like another as a game changer. Looking at that as a kid, it was like in the backyard, like low profile, but like really intense little scene, like crammed into that little space. The pictures look great. Everything just looked like you want to be there. Like it looks so cool. That event.
And that the other thing is like, you know, you had all these pros that showed up into this backyard, you know, where all these other guys were from this backyard. You know, they didn't have the magazine ever go to that ramp before. And then all of a sudden these pros show up and the magazine shows up. And that means that gives the little guy a chance, you know, where it's exactly where I came from. You know, hey, the magazine came to my skate park. I have a chance, possibility of being in the magazine. I know that this guy can't ride my skate park. So that if I could show these guys, I might be able to make it in the magazine. So that's what Joe's ramp did for a lot of guys.
Yeah. Yeah, was that Vanderspek that arranged that? I think Maurice Meyer said.
Yeah, Dave Vanderspek, and Ron was out there, and there was a couple other guys, local guys that just ripped. So
yeah, Richard Anderson or something. I think he said one of them. Maybe that was his name. Yeah, he had him down as one of the guys. Yeah, but that was great, that feature. Yeah, and then like from that year, you came to the UK to do the Kellogs show, right? And I think that maybe was involved in some tour that you did. And I wanted to ask you about that, because that was the Kellogs over here was like a huge deal in the UK. Like that was the first big BMX show that was on TV, and they brought you guys over, and it looked terrible. Like the actual what they got you to ride, like them little tiny quarters, like we were saying, little tiny trick ramp, no run up, like they made you do back hops through cones. It was like I was like 12 or something, and I was like, "What's this?" I was astonished. Yeah.
Right. So I remember that contest, and I remember, so we've had contests in the US, and we knew what contests were supposed to be like. And if you were doing flatland, this was the flatland run, and it was a freestyle. So, I mean, like, it was a show. We were entertaining. And to have them, say that you had to do back wheel hops through these cones, I'm going, that's not freestyle. That's not what this is about. We didn't have, they were trying to make it like a gymnastics routine where you had to do so many cartwheels, and you had to have a backflip in it, and you had to do this, and you had to do that. And that wasn't freestyle. Freestyle was doing it on your own and making up what you did. And I remember boycotting and saying, I'm not competing. No, this isn't what it's about. And they changed the format. So in the very beginning, in the first couple of competitions, and they had the race in between, right? Yeah. So they were doing the races, and then we would be like the intermission.
Intermission for the races, yeah.
Right. So while the racers were resting, we did the BMX freestyle competition, and the very first couple we were hopping through cones. Well, then I and Mike Dominguez actually said, that's not freestyle. So they changed it, and because we said we're not going to compete, and I think there was one. I mean, like it was a whole week of riding.
Yeah.
And there was one episode where you didn't see myself or Mike in the.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And then I think their sales went down, and because they wanted to see the United States guys compete.
Of course. Yeah.
And I think Andy Irwin won at that time, and
Terry Jenkins maybe.
And Terry Jenkins won because we weren't there. But Terry and Andy were both really good riders.
Yeah.
So they changed the format, and they started to do the freestyle, and then it was, back to normal, having a normal competition again. We weren't doing back wheel hops and front wheel hops and cone and things like that. So yeah, Mike and I both boycotted one day, and they really wanted to watch us ride, and so they changed things up, and they got it on film. So we changed it to make it for the better. We weren't trying to be hard-nosed about anything. It's just that wasn't freestyle. That wasn't what was going on in the States at that point in time. So,
No, that's great. Yeah, like that needed to happen. That was, I remember, like, you think I was so young, and I was like, "What's this?" I've seen all you guys up riding pipeline. I was like, "What's going on?" Like, they got these guys to back hop through cones. Like, it was even figured it out when I was 12. Like, that's how obvious it was. But those guys thought that was it. But yeah, so I interviewed Tim Leighton Boyce a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Remember him? So I asked him, I said, was the Kellogs that you missed? I said, was that when you took them to Livingston? And he was like, no, we didn't miss a show. Yeah. So you just explained it. Yeah, perfect. Nice.
Yeah.
I got the story there. But yeah, that's amazing that you just put your foot down and was like, no, man, we're not doing this. Yeah, sat one out. Oh, cool, man. Well, so you remember the feature of going to Livingston Skate Park? Because I was asking him about that, and he was saying he said that you guys asked him. Like I thought, oh, there's a magazine feature. I don't know. You must have seen it. Is making out that like, oh, TLB knew of this secret skate park and stuff. But he actually said that you guys was asking him about Livingston Skate Park, which I had no idea about.
Here we're coming from the States, and do you guys have any skate parks? Was there anything else that we could ride? Since we're here in this country, can we ride something? And yeah, they had Romford and Livingston and all these other skate parks that we got to go ride. What was weird is that there wasn't anybody there. Nobody was there that day. It was just Mike and I. It was like, what? Nobody rides this place? I mean, our parks were jam-packed full of kids, where we're trying to roll in going, okay, I'm after him and I'm after him and going next and things like that. And go to a skate park that nobody was at. And it was a fun park too. So I think it was the first time that Mike and I actually got to ride in the same pool at the same time, because we didn't have a bowl that big. Yeah,
that's right. So, that was one of the captions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was actually someone was telling me it's been spoke about before as well. There's a really well-known like old Scottish legendary rider up there called David Frame, and he was saying that some kids came and they said Eddie Fiola and Mike Dominguez is at the skate park. It was local to his place, and he just was like, bullshit. He said he didn't go. He didn't believe him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Magic. Yeah. And you went them photos in that mag were like really some of the best photos of that year. I think like of '84 of you guys riding that park. That was
right.
Right, and it had a good mystique to it.
Right. Was that Beat Cross magazine?
No, that was BMX Action Bike.
BMX Action Bike. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So. I just spoke with Bob Morales, and he said he has a couple issues of that.
Okay.
So
I have you not got that magazine?
I think I do. I just we've moved a couple times here and there, and I've got a bunch of crap laying around.
Okay.
So
I'll send you the scans because I scanned them recently because of TLB's interview I did. I scanned all of those pages, so I can send them to you. And it appeared in a later issue as well of some feature called Hot Concrete. I don't know if you've seen that one, but there's some really nice pics in there as well. But yeah, they were amazing. And you also went to Rom Skate Park. How many times did you go to Rom? Once or twice?
I think it was twice. I think we went there twice, and I can't remember exactly what was there or when we went, but I remember the name of Rom.
Okay,
Rom, yeah.
So it's the story. I interviewed Jess Dyrenforth, and he tells me the story of meeting you at Rom. Yeah,
okay.
And that's where he got on GT. That's where he was kind of invited to the real GT team, so to speak, rather than the English version, which is what he was doing. Right. So, yeah, I wasn't sure how many times you went, but, yeah, you definitely went once or twice. There's a few photos, really dark ones on the internet, but you only rode there like a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another video or I'm trying to remember. There was an auditorium that we went to, Bob Morales and I, and I'm in yellow, he's in yellow, and this quarter pipe is up against this wall, right? So the quarter pipe is going this way, the platform's on top, but this wall went up pretty high, and then there's a window up here.
Okay.
And I remember doing airs and this and that, and at the very end of the show, I rode up past the platform and landed next to the window platform. I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
Was that in the UK or France?
I think it was in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that. Okay, so that was 84 though. So maybe that was the year before I went. Did you do a UK tour in 84?
I think we did. We
Okay.
did. Almost positive. Yeah.
So I went to the year after, yeah.
Like, I was showing
Did you have much insight into the UK BMX scene before coming to the UK, or was it completely alien to you?
completely alien to us.
Okay.
We didn't know what to expect. And my thought on things is that, we don't, there might be somebody just as good as I am in the UK, or if not better. We don't know who's doing what. But we also found out that, like I did the photo session when I was a kid, and it didn't come out for 3 months. And then, I didn't know that it takes more time to get to you.
To get to that's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Or 6 months, or how long? So when we show up to England from the United States, the tricks that we're doing are so far advanced compared to what's in the magazine. And what you guys are seeing in the magazine is, incredible. But when we start to show up there, it's like the internet today.
It's live.
You get to see it live. Now I try this, and but going there again.
I love that photo.
Let's go this way. B cross.
French, that one.
Freestyling, another B cross. Magazine. Yeah.
So the 1 foot in the yellow, there's a picture of that from a different angle, from a straight on angle that was in Action Bike. That was really nice. Like, it was at the Kellogs. It's that trick, but it's taken from like looking at the quarter as you'd look at a quarter to take the run up. That's up north. That picture.
Yes,
I think that's in freestyle near the freestyle BMX offices, maybe, or was it GT Jeff Barraclough's place?
Barraclough. Yes, it's Jeff.
Okay, yeah, that's nice as well. Yeah, I've got that. I've got most of those mags. Yeah, the English ones.
I think I have the most covers of BMX.
Yeah, you taking that title? Probably. I mean, there's a few. I was looking recent because we was going to talk, so there's quite a few. I think you had 3 on freestyling, right?
3 or 4, and then and then BMX Plus, and then freestyling, and then what was it? Super BMX, and and then all the magazines in Europe and in Japan. I don't know of anybody else that might have gone to all these places that has gotten on all the shots. So,
and also I wanted to ask you about the 85 King of the Skate Parks, where you and Mike Dominguez are doing 540s on the. Where did the 540 come about? Yeah, on the hip, like.
Yeah,
that was early bit of footage for a 540. There was a guy over here doing it in 84, but that was like still very early.
Right. So I think that came from, seeing the skateboarder, Mike McGill, doing the McTwist. Okay. Right. So that's a 540. And, just trying it. Hey, if the skateboarders can do it, maybe we can do it on the bike. We don't know how high or out or in, so Mike tried it. I tried it. He did it out. I did it on the inside. The higher you go, the less spin you have to do. And I think Mike was the first one to, Mike or Brian was the very first ones to do it inside the, without getting out at the top, but still did the 540 and landing it. And then I think it was at the same competition that I did one, and then Mike did one right after me. So
that's right. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking.
I'm going to say that Brian did it first, then Michael did it second, and then I probably did it third. But I was a little bit higher out than Michael was, and yeah, and I think that was it. And then we started doing it on the half pipes. So
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What was the theory of doing it on the hip? Was it so you didn't clip?
Yes. Yeah. So it was less likely to clip that front end coming around.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to, because at the same time, that's a really awkward place to do it, right? This is like, you've got if you don't go up it right, you're going to slide, So
it was like literally like a 2 foot wide quarter pipe, right? So
that's right. Yeah, man. Nice. I always wondered that after seeing that. And the that's not the event that you've got the wheel discs on. No, you're not doing the fight. You're doing it with spokes, yeah. So the wheel disc thing. Was that you that started that? Yeah.
It was. I think. So, we were getting paid by our sponsors, and the more sponsors we had, the more we can get money for, right? So, since we were riding freestyle and we got rid of our number plate, where else could we put sponsors?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
On the discs. The other reason was, so Mike and Brian were both competing. We were competing against each other now. And I was sponsored by Skyway at the time. And I had mags. And Michael and Brian were riding alloys. Right?
Okay.
So the competition that I had to compete was really warm. It was hot. The rims were flexing more, and I couldn't get as high out as Michael or Brian unless I was running some alloys. But I wasn't being paid by that company. I was getting sponsored by Skyway, and so I was riding tough wheels. But I wanted to win. So I made these plastic covers to go over the alloy rims, and I put Skyway stickers all over the outside. I won the competition, and I lost my sponsor.
Well, they figured it out.
They did. I mean, you saw, because if you see the Skyway stickers on the outside, and then you see this alloy rim for the braking.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, my brakes worked. My brakes worked, and I got higher in the airs and didn't have to work as hard. So
your airs worked as well. Yeah, man. So basically, so then we're coming into we're in 85, right? That's this year with a wheel disc, I think, right?
Yes.
And then you come back to the UK for the full. This one was a big deal. This was the GT World Tour. The one before, I think you maybe only done a couple of days because I didn't know nothing about it. But the 85 one was I looked the other day. It was 10 or 11 dates just in the UK, not including the Kellogs. So you rode the Kellogs.
That was with Dave Breed, right?
Yeah, with Dave Breed.
Yeah.
So what was the second Kellogg's they'd learned from the first? It looked like.
Yeah.
And it looked quite good, the second one.
No, it was great. We met a lot more guys, A lot of the guys were in competition. We really actually had competition, and it turned out great. And we were able to go, from one country to another, and we had brought another guy with us that was part of GT that was in charge. So not only was he in charge, but he was in charge of taking photos of the world tour. So he would hand those pictures over to the magazine, and then the magazine was able to help us out and do our world tour. So,
all right,
yeah.
And what did you meet? Like, you met Neil Ruffell, I guess, and Craig Campbell with that one, or you met
Craig
them
Campbell,
before?
Neil Ruffell, a bunch of yeah. It was a good time. Yeah.
Did you ever meet Dave Curry?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He rode for Dyno for a while, right?
That's right. He rode for GT early. Yeah. Yeah. I just wondered how much you knew of him. And also, so then, like, you did them UK dates, and that was that something to do with Phase 7, the shop? Do you remember that shop, Phase 7? No?
I don't remember it exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, we did a bunch of stuff. So.
Okay. Because you did a show up north. I interviewed another Andy Preston who did the first leg of the tour, and he said that he got mad at one of the shows and drove home with his quarter pipe. Can you remember this? It was up north. Okay. Oh, I wonder, okay. They must have got another quarter
pipe. Did he say why he got mad?
Something happened where they was like racing a car around. I'm sure it was Newcastle, like a town up north, and something happened with the cops maybe, and somebody called his mum, and he was mad that they'd called his mum. So this is, obviously we're going back a few years, but he was young then, and he just said he got mad and he just drove his ramps home. Yeah, but this was up north. That's the first I'd heard of it, but I'm sure that was the one with Dave Breed. And where did Dave Breed come from, and where did he disappear to? Like, he was there and then he was gone. Like,
yeah. So I had met Dave Breed at Pipeline.
Okay.
And he was one of these guys that would hang out in the flat area and just do flatland tricks. A lot of his tricks were outside the box. Like, I've never seen I've seen somebody get into it, but never come out of it that way. And then I've seen some where he would get into it different than anybody else. But so he was just different than everybody else, had his own little niche of doing show. So when he was there and all the other guys were doing stuff, he stood out. He wasn't doing anything harder or more impressive, just it looked different. And I was always about doing a show, being the entertainment. What are you going to remember? That every trick that you saw everybody else do in like competition, if I'm doing the same trick everybody else is doing, then who are you going to remember? The guy that goes flat. Or if I do something completely different, then you're going to remember me. Or if I look completely different, then you're going to remember me. Maybe it might not be the hardest trick, but like a moonwalk, it's not that hard to do, but it's something you're going to remember.
It's something else. Yeah.
Right. So Dave had that in him. So Dave came in. I asked, they were talking about going on another world tour. Bob Morales couldn't do it at that point in time anymore. He was too busy doing his stuff and the competitions, and he had Dyno, and he was working with GT at this point in time, designing and doing things. So they literally said, well, who do you want to take with you? How about
take this guy?
How about this guy?
Cool, huh?
So that's how Dave got to it, and he didn't ride ramps. and I didn't do a lot of ground, so it worked out really well. So
yeah. Well, so he landed on GT and just went straight on the world tour.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Nice.
Yeah. That's
good,
pretty much
good
it.
timing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, you know, I started doing more commercials and more movies and things like that. So, and the King of the Skate Parks, you know, Dave didn't have anything to do with it. So when the tour was over, Dave pretty much went his own way, and I think he became he went into ministry. So he's you know, a minister. So that he's a man of God.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, I've not. Yeah, like I say, he was there and then he was gone. That was it. Like, no, I don't think no one has any information about him since that tour that I know of. Yeah, so that's good that you cleared that up. Yeah. Thank you. So, and also, like King of the Skate Parks is still going at this point, right? Does it run into 86 King of the Skate Parks?
Yes. Yeah. So
is that the last one is 86?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And the thing is that so we have GT has tours for us to go on, and these tours mean more to GT than the King of the Skate Parks competition. The King of the Skate Parks means a lot to me, but because I'm sponsored by GT wants me to go on these tours. So I hit like one or two of the contest tour, and I miss a couple contests. So then Mike wins one, Brian wins one, and at the end of the competition in 86, or in the end of 85, I think it was, I think Michael wins the series.
Okay.
So, yeah. And it went like that. So Michael, there was one King of the Skate Parks trophy that during the series, if you won the series, you kept that trophy, right?
All right.
Then the next year, we would go through the series, and if somebody else won, then that trophy, that big tall trophy, went to that guy's house.
Oh, you passed it on, okay.
You passed it on. It was the same trophy, but then they got to hang on to it for the year.
Wow.
At the end of that year, you know, whoever won got the trophy. So I ended up, when King of the Skate Parks was over, I ended up with the trophy.
Oh, cool. You still got it?
So I'm reigning king.
And why did they stop the King of the Skate Parks? Is it because half pipe stuff come in? Or
well, you know, 86, 87, BMX is starting its way down. All the skateboard parks are closing down. We were doing more tours, but the skate parks were closing because they were getting sued. And I don't know, you know, there wasn't anything you could do about it back then. So the parks just closed because they would make more money renting storage units than they were making the skate park. So and they wouldn't be sued if it was just storing stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah, I always wondered that because it just kind of stopped. But yeah, it started. You're already talking about it going into recession in '86. So yeah, it does make sense. What about the local skateboarders at the skate parks? Was there ever any friction between those guys not liking bikes riding the park, or was it all okay?
You know, when we came in, you know, skateboarding was on its way out, and BMX was way in. We kept the skate parks alive. We kept the skate parks going. So the locals that were going to the skate parks, they were fine with us, you know, riding there. We would take turns. Like I rode with Tony Hawk, and I rode with Salba and Malba, and you know, Christian Asoy and all these guys, Steve Caballero. I rode with all of these guys, and I didn't have a problem with any one of them. So I didn't have any problems. They might have had problems with some other bicycle riders, but I had respect for them. They had respect for us. It was all good.
Oh, good. Yeah, sometimes we hear stories about like there being grief a bit late in the later days, not in the earlier ones. Yeah, maybe a different bunch. Yeah, then that year also you filmed that video GTV.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that? Was that just a tour that was filmed?
Yeah, you know, they had the guy in charge of the production. They had an idea what they wanted to film, and they put it all. You know, that's when music videos were coming around, and all the highlights and all the colors, and they had an idea. Let's go down to downtown Hollywood and film you guys riding here and there, and then Josh White was coming into the deal where show him how to ride and bring in a new guy, and so all of that was not our idea, the riders' idea. It's all of GT's and their production company that they wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, what did you think of it when it came out?
No, I thought it was great. I didn't, I didn't have any problems doing it, and it was just another phase on the books that okay, yeah, let's do this next.
Just another project, yeah. Yeah. Okay. And did you ever feel like pressure, like being as you was like the top guy for like many years, and then like once these guys started sort of coming in around, I guess it was around 86, 87. What did you feel like? Well, these guys are coming up behind me pretty fast, or was you just like, whatever?
No. So yeah, these guys were coming in hot. They were going higher. They were doing tricks I couldn't do. They were landing smoother than I was, and they were getting paid less. So in a marketing aspect for GT, they're better off hiring a guy that's going to cost less and do more. Where I look back on it now. If GT would have stayed with me instead of going with the newer, better, improved Josh White guy, I still had more covers, and I still did more TV shows, and I still did this, and I still did that. Where after, Josh stopped writing, where did he go?
Yeah.
So, I like Josh.
As a company, I think sometimes people look at things as like the here and now. Yeah. And because they didn't have anything to gauge it on, because it hadn't been through that cycle yet, I think it's quite difficult for them to, you panic. It's going down, right? You're like, well, who are we going to pick? I can see how that might happen, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I was getting paid quite a bit. I mean, and one of the highest paid riders back in the day, where you're going to get somebody that's going higher and do better and actually winning contests again and things like that. It's a no-brainer for GT to go with the new guy and pay,
Yeah. And you seem to step away from the spotlight around this point. Like after GTV, we definitely saw a lot less of you. Was that a conscious, like, I'm stepping away from this BMX media?
I started getting into the movie industry. I started getting into the stunts and realizing that, it was funny as I tell people this, is that, I got paid good money to ride my bike. When I got into Hollywood, now they're paying me really good money to fall off my bike. So Hollywood, to do the stunts in the movie Rad and in TV commercials and things like that, where they just needed you to ride and they just needed you to listen to what they wanted. In the movie industry, everybody's got their niche. You got your director, and then you got your producer, and then you got the stunt people, and then you got your hair and makeup, and everybody, your electricians, and everybody does their own little job. And as long as you're not trying to do anybody else's job, they like working with you. But as soon as you start telling the wardrobe person, well, that shirt doesn't look do your job,
Yeah, man.
So
yeah,
but doing the stunt industry, getting into it, I also found out that not every movie and not every commercial had bikes in it. So I had to learn how to. I learned how to drive cars. I learned how to do 360s in cars and 180s and reverse slides and I learned how to ride motorcycles and do wheelies and do jumps, and I learned how to drive a boat and near miss and reverse and not hitting anything. And so I learned the behind the scenes rigging aspect of doing stunts also. So when you see Spider-Man throw a web up, well, it doesn't just go. There's guys climbing and pulling ropes. And so I learned all the behind the scenes aspect of the movie business in the stunt industry. So and it wasn't a competition. So I wasn't competing. We were making it safe for stunt people.
Okay. Have you done them Marvel? Have you done Marvel films?
So I've done Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, and that was the only two Marvel films that I got to work on. I worked on Indiana Jones, Crystal Skull. I worked on The Hangover. I worked on Contraband. I worked on some pretty,
bigger,
TV show wise. I worked on CSI. I worked on Walker, Texas Ranger. I worked on Vegas. I worked on a lot of TV commercials, 501s, Foot Locker, Del Monte, Mountain Dew. Worked on a Sprint commercial with David Beckham.
Oh, right. Yeah, I saw the video for that the other day, actually. Yeah.
So
nice.
Got to go, and got to meet a lot of people through that, and worked on Grown Ups 2.
I don't know what that is, but yeah.
So it's with Adam Sandler and a whole group of comedians that they used to be kids and now they're all grown up. So.
All right. No worries. Yeah. I also wanted to ask you about the S-Bend GT. I've missed that bit out.
All right.
Whose idea was that?
All right. So that idea actually came from Martin when Martin came on board. And, the GT Performer was selling, and it was selling good. And it was a world tour model that went around the world. And for a small, limited time only, there was an Eddie Fiola world tour model. And it had little Eddie Fiola stickers around the head tube. But when Martin came in, Martin was doing a lot more flatland tricks and not so much ramp stuff. So he needed more room where his foot needed to be because the Performer didn't have a lot of room where you're doing a lot of flatland stuff, where Martin liked to stick his foot in between, and that S-bend gave him more room. So
because they used you were the picture on the ads was you holding the frame, wasn't it?
Yes.
Do you remember? Yeah, you could just see the back end. Yeah, that's it. I wondered about that, and it definitely, saying that, it was going down by then, but it wasn't as popular, but it definitely was less popular. The Performer was a classic, I thought.
Yes.
Did you ride any of the 2-hip half-pipe contests?
I'm not sure if it was called the 2-hip contest when I rode the one. I did ride one. and I think at that point in time, I think it was 1988, and I wasn't sponsored by GT anymore. But I called SE, and they had given me a PK Ripper, and I rode the flying wedge bars. And
all right,
yep.
You got a pic somewhere. There's a picture of you riding that setup, right? Somewhere. Black and white,
at literally at a Gail Webb show, in like an amusement park at Knott's Berry Farm.
Okay.
So, but I think I rode a competition, and I think I came in like 5th, and so I didn't do very well. Josh White was there, Todd Anderson was there, and Ron Wilkerson. It was at his house.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it was a whip contest or if it was just the Enchanted Ramp contest.
Okay. I think it would have been. It should have been a 2-hip. It weren't the one where Craig Grasso got naked. No, I think that was 88. Was it? Oh, that was the one. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Amazing. Yeah, it was 2-hip. Yeah. And what was how? So GT ended how? Like, how did it officially end? Did you just leave it behind, or?
So I was doing more and more, movie and TV show and commercials and things like that. So I wasn't involved in competitions. I was still doing shows here and there, but I wasn't going as high as everybody else and not doing the hard tricks like everyone else. And they would give me a bike that if I needed it. And what was weird, so they hired me one day in 88, the end of 88. They hired me one day to be an announcer for, I think it was Dave Voelker and someone else. They wanted me to announce a show, and I had brought my bike, and I rode a little bit here in the show, and I was announcing, and some kid came up and was asking me if I wanted to sell my bike or sell something or this and that. And I remember that he needed the cranks and that he wanted to trade me. I remember this. He wanted to trade me for a video game console. It was a but I mean it was a handheld video game console. I think it was a Sega.
Okay.
Right. So anyhow, I trade this kid for a pair of cranks, and when we got back, I think Dave mentioned that, Eddie sold his cranks on tour or whatever. I don't know why he said this, but, I'm selling the product that I'm getting for free. I'm selling. And he's completely right. But anyhow, I got reprimanded by the team manager at that time, who was Todd Hoffman. Who used to race for Todd Hoffman used to race for SE back in the day, and now he's the team manager for SE, or not SE, GT.
Okay.
And they at this point in time in '88, it used to be that we used to go into GT and we'd stick it in a bag and we'd leave, and nobody'd ask or nobody'd question us. Where at the end of in '88, if you needed this, okay, well, we're gonna have to take the number down. We're gonna have to write that down. We're gonna have to put that in and that's got to go up in the board, and then we got to reorder this, and so it was corporate. Everything's corporate.
Yeah.
When I sold the cranks deal for them, that I sold something that I wasn't supposed to sell. So, and it wasn't that I sold them and I came back and said, hey, I need a new pair of cranks. I didn't. I sold the cranks that I knew that I had another set of cranks at home. No big deal. But they reprimanded me and they said, hey, we're going to have to let you go and we're not going to sponsor you anymore and whatever. So that's when I went back to SE and I said, hey, I need a bike. And they just gave me one. So,
oh man,
God has always been,
bit of a sour ending.
Been there for me.
Okay, nice. Yeah, didn't know that. Yeah, didn't know anything about that story. That sucks. And
so I can blame it. I can blame it all on Dave.
I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that. And also, I wanted to ask you about, was it called the City Cat or something? I remember adverts for, it looked like a fold-up bike or something.
Yeah, so, no longer sponsored by GT, no longer making money from a bicycle company. And all of a sudden, this bike company comes in and they say, hey, we would like you to represent this bike and tell us what you think. Write it and tell us what you think. If you read the ad, if you have the ad and you read, there's a caption on the side of the picture. And it's in quotations. This bike is like no other bike you've ever ridden. I didn't say it was good. I didn't say it was bad. They handed me a buttload of money, and they never came out with it.
Oh, it didn't even come out.
And that was it. I mean, that's the money talked, and that's all I could have. That's all I could have done. So.
Yeah, well, that was something I always wondered. The City Cat, I couldn't work that out. Yeah. Thanks for clearing that one up as well.
Money talks. If it shoulda, woulda, coulda. If I knew better, I probably wouldn't have said anything. I wouldn't have done that. Would have came out with my own bike.
Yeah. So, well, that happened years later, right?
Years later, 2013, I think it was.
Okay.
Now I had the idea. For a long time. When the BMX bikes, the freestyle bikes started to look like normal again. When we had freestyle bikes back in the, you could cross the street. There was a hut. There's, but now there's a Sunday, a Fit, a Cult, a Standard. They all look identical. Where I wanted I wanted a bike that looked different than everybody else's bike. I wanted a bike that I could look across the street and say, "There's my bike," and that's the bike I want to ride. So when I came out with my bike, GT stopped making the Performer. They stopped the Bend. They just made normal BMX bikes, and they changed the geometry to a better geometry. They changed the top tube to a better top tube. They made the bike better, but they got rid of the nostalgic look of the bike. So
features,
yeah, and they literally stopped making. I mean, like they didn't call the bike a Performer anymore. They didn't have a Performer. So in 2013, when I came out with my bike, I didn't call it a Performer. I called it a Proformer. So it's slightly different, and I made it look like the old GT Performer, but I used the new bike geometry. So I changed the frame so it wasn't a Performer. It was a Proformer, and it had a 21-inch top tube, and it had a 72-degree head tube angle, and it had difference. We changed it quite a bit. But from a distance, it looked like a Performer,
but it looked like an 80s Performer.
Right.
It looked like the older performer, though, right?
Right.
Still had
Right.
that
But
same
it had
sort of-
but it had a new geometry. So any new school kid could ride it and it would feel fine. But I got a letter from GT, from corporate, and it was a cease and desist letter saying, "Hey, you know, we don't like that you're calling it a Proformer because it sounds like Performer, and we don't like that it looks like our bike and it's not our bike, and it's weird is that I and Martin actually went to GT and we said, hey, here's an idea. This is before Haro did the lineage, and this is like 2010 was we went to GT and tried to say, hey, how about we do this idea? We bring back the Performer, we make a new school look out of it with an old school. We make a new school geometry with an old school look. And the guy at GT said, oh, that'll never sell. So we and then Martin went off and did something else. I don't know what he did, but I in 2013 made the bike and like I said, got a letter from GT and I only made 250 of those frames.
That's a good frame. That's a good frame run.
Yeah. So
yeah, man, that's a good frame run for nowadays, man. Like, yeah. But I know it was back then, but like, still, yeah. No, so there's only 250 full stop, or you carried on, you changed it slightly.
So we changed it up. So the very first run, and this is the difference between, you know, the very first run that I did was done in 2013. And I found a guy that actually worked at GT back in the day, and his name was Johnny Severance, and his bike company, Johnny True Torch. And he used to work for GT, welding the Performers together. So he said he could build me this bike, and it would cost X amount of dollars to build, and we did it. So we did frame, fork, and bars. And the difference between these frame, fork, and bars is that, you know, I numbered the frames, I numbered the forks, I numbered the bars. So they're all identical. So there's a number on the bars, a number on the forks, and a number on the frame.
Okay.
They're all matching. So like a car had the engine that matched the body. So not only did I find the guy to weld them together that worked for GT, his shop was in Santa Ana. Not only is right, so his shop is in Santa Ana. We buy the same exact tubing that GT buys back in the day from Webco Steel. So that's the exact same stuff that they used back in the day. I went to the same sticker company that GT used back in the day. I went to the same powder coat company GT used back in the day. I went to the same box company GT used back in the day. So my bike in 2013 is more of a GT than GT is today, because they're all made in Taiwan and China and all this stuff. So yeah, so those bikes were like I said, we only made 250 of them, and they gave me the cease and desist and not to do it anymore. And then during the end of that run, I was having problems with Johnny not producing on time.
Okay.
So I changed manufacturers, and I went to a guy that I went to a long time ago, and his pricing was a little bit higher than Johnny, but the quality I think was better. So Bill Ryan also used to work for GT, but now started his own company called Supercross BMX.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
And he started. I said, "Hey, I'm done with Johnny. How much would it cost?" And this and that, and we made a deal together. And so Bill and I have been working since 2000. 17
Oh, amazing.
since then. Yeah.
Cool.
So
So
we
it's still
have,
available, yeah? You can still get them.
We still have frame, fork, and bars, but now Bill Ryan has also bought the name Torker, and
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah. So what's funny is, I started off on a Torker, so he made an Eddie Fiola version of a Torker of what I used to ride. That cover shot of that bike,
Yeah,
is a Torker. So he made a new school geometry, but looks old, but new geometry. So it's identical to the bike I'm riding now, freestyle wise. So it's identical to the Pro Former, or what we now call the Former Pro.
yeah.
And I didn't want to spend any money on my sticker, so I just cut it in half.
A perfect name.
I think, and that's them
there, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the Torker and the Former Pro.
Nice. The Torker looks long, doesn't it? Just because of the tubing, it makes it. Yeah, it looks long. Yeah, no way. And I wanted to ask you about the. So I went to California the first time in 1995. I mentioned it to you in the mail, and there was a bunch of different lines, and then there was a jump in the middle, and I think it was Todd Lyons actually, and it was like, "What's this jump?" And he's like, "Oh, that's the Eddie Fiola flip jump." So that was the first time I'd heard your name in years. And I was like, no way, he still rides. And they were like, yeah. He learned this to learn backflips for for stunt work and stuff. Oh, well, for riding, but you can then use it for TV, right?
Right. So we, after watching Jose, in the movie Rad, watching him do it, live in front of me, that makes it possible. Right. So now I have to learn it. And a couple other guys have learned it, and they learned it on, in a lagoon in water. And, we didn't have foam pits. We didn't have resi mats. So we, eventually I brought it to Sheep Hills and dug up a landing to where it was the same takeoff as the ramp was. And so it was like an 8-foot transition, 4 foot tall, and the landing was going to be, a little bit softer. So that's where I learned it into, from dirt to landing. So.
Oh, no way. So was someone catching you? How did you learn that?
So we learned it into water.
Into water first. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Right? Learned it into water. And the problem with water is that the ramp was here and the water's down here.
Yeah, step down, yeah.
It's normal, your landing ramp would be here.
Yeah,
so we had a guy, when we would jump into the lake, hold a pole that had cardboard.
All right.
So if we could land on the cardboard, we could time it, right?
Amazing.
You land and flipped and you landed on the cardboard, that means you can bring it to dirt.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Oh man.
Yeah.
Cool, man. We're getting to the end of this. I'm sorry I've kept you so long, but I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Good.
What would you say your favorite color and uniform was throughout your years? This is one of my friends asked me this, and he said to ask you, the yellow, the white, or the black?
I really like the black. I really like the black. But in the United States, when we did tours, the black was just way too hot. We'd go out to a show for 45 minutes, and it's just you're just dripping sweat. When I first brought that out, I think I was in France. I was in France, and I brought it to a Bercy show, and it was when I think also when Michael Jackson came out with the music Bad.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So this black uniform with that music going on, I think it went really well. Now, I liked the color yellow, and I liked the yellow and black combination. So, those are my two favorites. The white just got dirty so quick, but it looked so clean.
Yeah. I looked at video the other day, and you're riding pipeline with the white and the white bike, and I thought I'd forgotten that was a nice crisp look. Yeah. And the name, the Flying Banana, was that made up by the TV guys on the Kellogs?
That was straight from the Kellogg's guy. That was, it's so funny is that, so I'm now, it brings me to a point where I'm working on a music video. Now I don't know the musician is. I don't know who the singer is. I don't know anything what's going on. But I'm supposed to make it safe for the band and the singer who's on this music video. And when we show up on set, everybody's name is on this paper, who the singer is, who the band is, and none of these people, I don't know who any of these people are. All I know is that I'm stunt rigging, and this is the stunt coordinator, and we're supposed to be in downtown LA, and it's a float. So it's something that goes down the street, in a parade, but it's a boat that's afloat. Yeah. So this band is supposed to be on the boat that's going down Hollywood Boulevard. So I'm in a parking lot somewhere, and I'm wrenching on some stuff to make it safe so that we can hook up some cables and then hook those cables to the band. And from behind me, and I'm on my hands and knees working on something, from behind me, I get this English accent, and this guy says, Is that Eddie Fiola, the Flying Banana? And I look back, and it's Robbie Williams.
Oh, no way.
And
brilliant.
He remembers watching the Kellogg's contest. He's pulling out his phone so that he can take a selfie of me with him.
Oh,
and then he goes through this whole thing. Oh, I've got a hutch. I've got this bike. I've got this bike. I got married on my bike. I got this. And he says, I can't buy any more bikes. My wife will kill me. And it was cool.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. All right. And you've got a book. The book is out, right? You can buy the book. It came out last year or a year before. Okay.
Yeah. So and my book is out. The When I Was King.
That's it. Yeah. With the famous the good picture on the cover.
Yeah.
How's that? Is that you still got copies of that to sell?
Yes. Yeah. You can buy it on Barnes and Noble. You can buy it through Amazon. You can buy it through Rad Designs 1986. You can buy it almost anywhere. But now we're doing a documentary on it. So we actually have a film crew that we did, and pretty much going by what the book, how we wrote the book, but we're now visual. You get to see, like when I said I ran home to get my bike to make it back to the Lakewood skate park, we drive that. And to visualize that I ran all this way home, we put it in a hyperlapse mode, but I ran far. So anyhow, doing that, we interviewed Gail Webb, we interviewed Steve Van Dorn, we interviewed Bob Morales and Jeremy McGrath and all these guys that were into BMX back in the day that looked up to me, and so it's good documentary.
When is it?
We should be done editing somewhere around the end of September. So it's pretty close.
That's this year. This year it's coming out. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, awesome. And how long did that take to make?
Oh, we did 2 years ago.
All right,
So
a while, yeah.
Crew, yeah, the film crew is back east in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the director is in I'm going to say Atlanta, Georgia. So when they get together, they fly out, they interview people, they come to my house, they talk to me, they fly back, they edit some stuff, when they have enough. We're trying to do this on a budget that we don't have, and that's where we're at. So luckily enough, after doing mine, a production guy, I guess, found somebody to put money up for the Gale Webb. So the same guys that did mine are now doing Gale's interview and Gale's documentary on Gale. So and Gale has, if not more people that she's touched or reached out and she's going to have a good documentary. Yeah.
That's good. I look forward to both. Yeah. Oh man, nice. Okay, well, I'm good with that. If you're good with that, and thank you very much. Like seriously, you were one of my guys from back in the day. You was a huge inspiration for me, and I rode BMX through the '80s and I still ride BMX every day. So I thank you for what you gave the BMX world, because it was good. You're part of my puzzle here. So thank you very much, man.
No worries.
And thanks a lot for spending the time.
Thanks for listening. We've got a Patreon page, so if you could show us any support, we'd be most grateful. The link's below. A lot of work goes into these shows, so anything you could do would be much appreciated. Thank you.